welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I'm, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 201st episode, our returning guest is Josh Sigler. You first heard Josh Sigler on episode 14, along with fellow regular guest Brandon Chapman. Josh Sigler grew up in Tipton, Indiana, where he was a 2002 honors graduate of Tipton High School. He earned his bachelor's degree in media studies and organizational communication from Manchester University in 2006, and served as community affairs intern at WTHR Channel 13, Indianapolis, during his senior year. He's worked for various publications over a 15 career as a journalist, including the Kokomo Tribune and the Wabash Plain Dealer. He earned the Hoosier State Press Association Award for Best Sports Feature in 2015, and has won various other awards during his career from the HSPA and the Associated Press. During his 6 years at the Kokomo Tribune, Sigler was an AP football pollster, and his work has appeared in publications such as the South Bend Tribune, the Hartford Courant, and the San Antonio Express-News. A quick programming note: you can read Josh's October 4th, 2015 Kokomo Tribune story, What Happened to Tabby? Unsolved Tipton Murder Still Haunts Family, by clicking the link in the show notes. And now on to the show. Thanks for doing this tonight. I appreciate it.
Man, it's my pleasure to be on the show. It's an honor to be back. I know it's kind of almost a relief now to have something to actually talk about, because the first time I was on your show, I was like, what are we going to talk about? Because I don't even do this anymore. But now I'm in a whole different, headspace and like working on some real stuff. So it's an honor to be back.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as you mentioned, it has been a while since you've been on, so maybe you could, as Jay-Z once said, allow me to reintroduce myself.
Well, I am a 2002 graduate of Tipton High School, which is important for this interview, I would guess you could say. Maybe the whole reason that this is even happening, but Manchester University, class of 06, and then I got my start in journalism in 2006 at the Wabash Plain Dealer, and I worked there for 4 years, and then I moved on to the Kokomo Tribune. I worked there for 6 years, and then I moved back to Wabash, tried a couple different career paths that didn't really work out for me, and then my wife got blessed with the opportunity to come back to her hometown of Mishawaka to become an associate principal here at Mishawaka High School, and so I've been living here for the last couple of years, and I work for a insurance technology software company now. I work from home, but that gives me the autonomy to also work on things like a book project if I so choose. So that's what I've been doing since the last talk.
Absolutely. Well, let's mention it just one more time. Award-winning journalist, not just any journalist. Let's put that on the front street.
Appreciate that. And I let people know every once in a while. I flex a little bit. I have the plaque that I won hanging in my living room. So
yeah,
it's a big part of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it's not just an ego thing. It's just that anyone nowadays can call themselves a journalist and not know the first thing about it. So I just want everyone to realize that, that you're hearing from an actual journalist today.
Yeah, I mean, the awards that I have won have come from reputable places like the Associated Press and the Hoosier State Press Association.
Real actual awards that people.
Yeah, I'm not Joe Biergut with a keyboard that goes on Reddit and thinks he's a journalist.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, I kind of want to start at the beginning of your story here, because kind of set the scene. Where is this case? When is this case? What do people need to know about Tipton in this time period, and kind of where you're at and where the story begins, I guess.
Well, it's just there's so many things to talk about when you talk about the death of Tabitha Raines, the murder of Tabitha Raines. I had just graduated from high school in 2002 and was a freshman at Manchester University when this happened. Tabitha Raines, a 16-year-old girl who had just given birth to her first child 6 months previous to that, was found shot in the head in Cicero Creek in Tipton Park on October 2nd, 2002. And so you're talking about 20 years ago in Tipton, a town of 5,000 people where everyone knows everyone's business. And So this girl comes up missing on October 2nd, and on October 5th, they find her dead body in the creek.
Mm-hmm. And just reading back through the story, it's layer after layer. It's like an onion, right? That's the outer layer, what you just said.
Yeah, that's
there's
the
more, way
10,000
more.
foot view of it.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely the 10,000 foot view of it. And there's
Yeah.
just, I don't know where you want me to go with it from here. There's just so many like twists and turns. It's hard to, and it's hard to all put in like chronological order or because there's some twists.
Well, I want to make kind of some distinctions at the beginning about let's kind of just start with what we know for sure. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of like he said, she said later on, and you know, people saying different conflicting stories. So
so here's the
maybe just stick to the evidence to begin with.
The only two irrefutable facts about this case is that Tabitha Raines had cocaine in her system and it had started to metabolize before she was killed. And the other piece of physical evidence that they have, and this is all I know of, is that the bullet that was used was matched to the gun of Kyle Neff's mother, who and Kyle, the story goes that Kyle lent the gun to the accused murderer, Elizabeth Balser, and who then shot Tabitha in the park that night over a argument over drugs. Other than that, they found no physical evidence, no shell casings, none of that in the park near where the body was found. Mm-hmm. So it's a very likely story. And so fast forward to the court case itself, you basically have those two pieces of physical evidence, and the rest of it is whose story do you believe over whose. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole crux of this. And the thing that really, I did the story for the Kokomo Tribune in 2015 or 16. I can't remember what year it was.
I think it was 2015.
They all run together. Mm-hmm. It was a really fun time. I was gonna just write the story. It was a big deal in my hometown when I was a kid, and here I was, you know, being the Tipton County beat reporter at the Kokomo Tribune, and I was like, why not revisit this? Mm-hmm. And Kyle and I have known each other almost our entire lives, Kyle Neff and I. My stepmom worked for his mother at Cheryl's restaurant. Mm. Debbie Neff owned Cheryl's restaurant in Tipton, and my mom worked there for like 20 years. So they were like really close friends. Okay. So I know Kyle on a personal level, and he and I were talking one day, and he wouldn't go on the record with me for the story. He would tell me, though, that everything that he testified to in court was the truth, and that was that. And he took the plea agreement because he knew that basically the only physical evidence in the case pointed right at him because of the gun with the bullet matching up. He would later change his story so many times, according to his wife, during prison visits and stuff like that. But where was I going? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's hard to keep track sometimes. There's a lot of like they say in the Big Lebowski. There's a lot of strands to keep an old duder's head. It just it keeps going and going. But okay, so let's go back to maybe that is all that stuff I definitely want to get to. So we're back 2002. It's October.
Okay. So the whole reason, let's go. I'm sorry. Let's go to 2015 again, real quick. The whole.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I got interested in making more than just a story for a newspaper out of this. Yes. Was after the story came out. Okay. The then Tipton County sheriff, who is still a sheriff, came to Kyle and asked him what I wanted to talk to him about. Kyle told me that Tony Frawley came to him and asked this. So and Tony was a detective with the state police when all this happened, and he was very involved in the case. And that got me. That piqued my interest way past a newspaper article, because I'm like, why are the authorities asking people after the fact why I want to talk to them? Mm-hmm. Also, the Tipton County prosecutor, Jay Rich, considers this an open case and won't let anyone see the case files. But I have a little curveball in my bag that he doesn't know about, and he's going to be surprised when this book comes out because I have everything he has.
Interesting. So,
in terms of case material.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not telling anyone how I got that. I'll go to jail before I tell anyone where I got it.
Wow. All right. So going back, I just want to make sure people are clear on the facts of the case and kind of the way the stories came out, because there's one story and then someone else speaks up and then there's another story, as you said, with the cocaine and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So she goes to be with her friend Amanda Pratt at a local hospital where Pratt's grandmother is gravely ill.
Right.
So that's the story that gets her out of the house, I guess. And then
her mother-in-law, it was very common in those days for her mother-in-law to watch her son Drake while she went and did whatever stuff she was doing.
Gotcha.
Tabby's mom, Buffy Parrish, does not believe that that story was the truth. They were going to do
a cover story.
They were going to do something else, because it turns out that there was no sick grandma. There was none of that when it all came time to figure out what was going on. There was no sick grandma in any hospital anywhere.
I was gonna say, I read the entire story and I was like, I never heard anything else about that about that grandma. I hope she made it. Anyway,
at least
right. So anyway, so the media is informed of the disappearance. Flyers go out. So Pratt's boyfriend Neff. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just getting a little confused already. So tell me where the story goes from there.
Pratt is Kyle Neff's wife.
Gotcha.
I don't know exactly when they married and her name changed to Amanda Neff, but they've since been divorced, and that's another story for a whole nother time.
Okay.
So they find the body October 5th, and they do their whatever police investigators do at the scene of a body when there's a dead body. They take her body out of the creek. And Tipton is such a small town that it does have a hospital, but they don't actually have a morgue like they do in Howard County in Indiana at the hospital. All they have is like a refrigerated tank to hold bodies.
Okay.
So her body sat in the hospital in a refrigerator overnight before they took her down to Indianapolis, so that the pathologist down there at IU Health could do the autopsy. Because and when it comes to homicides in small towns like this, they typically defer to the state to help them investigate.
I see.
So they took the body to a pathologist in Indianapolis, who obviously found that she had died as a result of a gunshot wound to the head, and they ruled it a homicide at that point. So we're talking October 8th, maybe by this time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it says autopsy on the 7th, and then by the 9th we're having the funeral, and then all right. So now we get to Andrew Bush.
Okay, so
you want to introduce that part? Sorry, is there anything else you wanted to say before we get to that?
Between Bush coming forward and the funeral, between that time frame, the cops really didn't know what they didn't really have anything.
Okay.
Other than the bullet, which they didn't know who it belonged to at the time.
Okay.
And they had, the results of the autopsy with the toxicology.
Gotcha. Okay. And so
what
is Andrew? Who's Andrew? Yeah, sorry, go on.
And to make things even worse, the guy who was the lead detective on this for the Tipton Police Department had died in 2003, 8 months after Andrew Bush comes forward and tells the story that I'm about to tell you.
Oh man.
So you don't have him as a resource anymore, and a lot of people say that the investigation fell apart when he died because he I don't know if his note taking was great, but this guy had been a police officer and a police chief for 12 years and a police officer for 30. So, but this is I know I sound so scatterbrained, but this is just such a wild story with so many rabbit holes.
It is. It really, really is.
And now I forgot what you were trying to ask me.
Oh, I was just trying to make sure we covered everything before we got to Andrew Bush, because you were going to tell that part of the story.
So I don't have the inner workings of the dialogue of the police department from October 2002 until February of 2003. I don't know what was going on then, but nothing actually came out to the press about what the investigation had found at that point, until Andrew Bush comes forward, and he kind of just changed the whole trajectory of everyone's fate, really.
All right, so who is Andrew Bush?
Okay, so Andrew Bush is a kid that lived in Tipton for a very short time and apparently went to high school with us that year in 2001 and 2. I don't remember him, and it's a small school. But apparently he went to school there for a short time. But anyway, he was a 17-year-old kid who had come to Tipton to live with his dad in a mobile home park on the very far east end of Tipton. And he was kind of a troubled teen. He was into drugs and alcohol, and he just so happened to be. He claims he just so happened to be sitting in the Tipton Park Pavilion on the night of October 2nd when he witnessed Tabitha Raines walk up to him in the pavilion, and she seemed very out of sorts and antsy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they sit for a minute and share some vodka that Andrew Bush had, and they did find alcohol in her system in the autopsy. So I mean that seems to match up with the story. And so they're talking small talk, and then here comes a very large late model Oldsmobile car. It's like they call it. I mean it was such a boat of a car if you could see this thing back then. But anyway, I think it was like maroon or something, and it was rusted out. But you always knew when this person was coming down up the street because you could hear it and see it, and you had to get out of the way with your vehicle or you were going to get hit because this thing was so wide. I mean, it was straight out of the 70s. So it comes rolling up in the park, and Andrew Bush immediately knows who it is because this person is his neighbor. Her name is Elizabeth Pollster. Mm-hmm. She has with her Kyle Neff. They get out of the car. And for whatever reason, they don't come to the pavilion. They disappear down the creek bank at first. Mm-hmm. I guess why they went down the creek bank is they were going to meet Jonathan Yates, another friend of Neff's and Pollster's. Mm-hmm. And so they reemerge in a different part of the park. The creek kind of wraps around the park in Tipton, and it runs right out in front of the high school, basically to back behind the park. Back behind the hospital by the golf course. Mm-hmm. If you understand where Tipton lays out at all. Mm-hmm. And so they show up, the three of them, Yates, Pollster, and Neff, show up in a different part of the park a couple minutes later. And this time, Elizabeth Pollster yells for Tabitha to come over to them. And Bush comes along for the walk. And as soon as they get to where other people are, Elizabeth Pollster starts accusing Tabitha Raines of stealing some cocaine and then hits her in the face with a gun. And, at this point, Bush was freaking out. He's also on opioids and benzodiazepines to go with the alcohol, he claims. So he's heavily on drugs. He just witnesses someone get pistol whipped. He tries to help Tabitha, and then Tabitha points the gun at him and says, "Shut the F up. Don't say a effing word." And so at that point, he doesn't want to, it's a crazy person with a gun who just hit another person with a gun, so he doesn't know what to do. Plus, he's messed up on drugs. Apparently, then Elizabeth turns back to Raines, Tabitha, who has gotten halfway back to her feet, and she shoots her in the head. Mm. Everybody, Neff, Yates, are stunned. They thought that she just was going to scare her to try to get the cocaine back that she allegedly stole, and now she ends up pulling the trigger, and we have a 16-year-old on our hands here now. So Pollster still has the gun. She demands that Yates and Neff help her get rid of this body. There's the creek right there. So as they go to do that, Andrew Bush claims that he runs from the scene. And if you understand where the park is in relation to Country Living Trailer Park, he claims he runs all the way home. It's just a person that's not in shape, heavily inebriated by numerous drug intoxication. It's going to be extremely difficult for someone to run that entire distance to a trailer park on the other end of town. Tipton is small, but that's still a good couple miles. Mm-hmm. So I started putting out feelers on Facebook a few weeks ago just to see what I could find. And Andrew Bush's girlfriend at the time got a hold of me through Facebook Messenger. And I asked her, I was like, do you think he had the ability, being on 120 milligrams of oxycodone, 3 to 4 milligrams of Xanax, which is twice the recommended dose, max dose for a psych patient, as well as vodka? And she says, to be honest, yes, those guys, the crowd that they ran with in those days, were that messed up all the time. So apparently Bush physically had the capability to do this. So he tells that story, and literally the next day, the Indiana State Police arrest Pollster, Neff, and Yates of murder and the aiding and inducing of something or another. I don't remember all the charges. I have them written down. But anyway, so that's how that's how it all came to a head.
Yeah, so that's the new wrinkle in the case, to say the least. It sounds like you don't necessarily completely, at least you're a little bit skeptical of this story. Are you skeptical of the whole thing? Are you skeptical of parts of it? Or I mean, what?
Here's where it all begins for me in terms of skepticism towards the thing. What did Andrew Bush have to gain by coming back to the Tipton authorities 5 months after he had left and was not suspected of any crime? What did he have to gain to come back and tell Gary Stout and Jay Rich the story that he told? They found no blood. There was no rain between October 2nd and October 5th in Tipton, Indiana, yet they found no blood, no shell casings, no physical evidence. She was found, when Tabitha Rain's body was found, she was found with just a gray hoodie on, no pants, no underwear, no shoes, nothing other than a gray hoodie that wasn't even hers. And so that doesn't match up with any of the story that Bush allegedly tells. How does she end up half naked? Why is there no physical evidence in the park? And Buffy, Tabby's mom, does not believe the story that came out in court. Buffy Parrish doesn't believe that Elizabeth pulled the trigger. Elizabeth has told her that she did not have anything to do with the murder. So there's that.
Yeah. So just to review, you've got the police. There's turmoil in the police because the longtime person on the case dies. Yes. And does he die after or before this all comes out?
He died 8 months after the confession by Bush.
After the confession. Okay. Yeah. So he was involved in the initial part, but nothing after that, obviously.
Right. And then about a week and a half later, Bush came back to Tipton and walked through the park with the detective and the prosecutor and retold his story and walked him through the park and retold the story. The reason that the police believed him is that he corroborated details that weren't known to the public at the time. Is what they said, which is basically a blanket statement for this is the best thing we have to go on in terms of prosecution, so we're going to go on it. That's what I believe.
Got you.
I don't want to speak ill of elected officials in any way at all possible, but Jay Rich became a prosecutor that year, and if they feel like, and I was denied a FOIA request to review the case files. Because it's an active investigation, he says. I have a lot of material that I must have. It's a matter in the next year for me to read through it, figure out, what I want to do in terms of how do I create a narrative out of everything that I have in this case file. And I also have an interview set up with one of the people who covered the trial from beginning to end that I didn't have back in 2015. Tabitha's son is now 20 years old. He wants to talk to me. And I've got a handful of other interviews still to do, and then thousands of pages to read before I get to my goal, which is 30,000 words.
Well, you need at least that much to get to everything in this case, for sure. Now, is there anything else you want to say before we get to the legal aspects, the trials, the moving the venue, and all that? Is there anything else about the case that people should know at this point?
Yeah. So another alternate theory. That is pretty popular, and I believe this probably has a better chance of being the actual truth than what was told by Andrew Bush. Kyle Neff's mother, Debbie, had a house on Jackson Street in Tipton, which is literally a 3-minute walk to the park on foot from the house. And we talk about the no physical evidence in the park. It was a fairly poorly kept secret that Tabitha and her husband Michael were kind of into swinging, and so was Kyle Neff and Amanda. And I am friends with people that worked at the restaurant with them. Kyle had been in trouble before because he robbed his mom, and he had done some other felony crime. And so he worked at the restaurant, and he was a hard worker by all accounts. He just, he was into drugs, and he was willing to do whatever he could to get cocaine at the time. But anyway, so the theory is that Amanda was very jealous of Tabitha, and at some point something went sideways during some type of swingers thing going on in the basement of that house by the park. That would account for the reason why Tabitha doesn't have any clothes on. That would account for why there's no blood in the park. That would account for why there's no shell casings in the park. And so something went sideways in the basement of that house. Tabitha wound up dead. And, the creek was right there. And that's the easiest way to get rid of a body in that town where you were currently at. I know that town like the back of my hand. There's no other better place other than a cornfield in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it very possibly could have been that, but she did have cocaine in her system in her autopsy, so that that leaves that.
What is the source of that theory that you just mentioned? Is that just something you've heard from several people, or is that one person saying that, or?
Tabitha's mom believes something of that. I've heard people say that they believe that she was killed in some ritual, which I don't know if there's much to that. I don't believe that as much as I believe that the swinging thing, there was jealousy, drugs were involved. But Tabitha did say to her mom a couple weeks before she died, she said, if something happens to me, there are pictures of the people who are responsible for my death in the diaper bag.
Mm-hmm.
And when Buffy went for that diaper bag, there was a picture of Kyle and a picture of Michael.
I'm sorry, my daughter's out here pulling every wipe out of her case that she can. I'm sorry, I had to deal with that for a second.
Hey, man, father as well. I totally get it. You said 9 o'clock. I was like, oh, right, the kids will be out of my hair by then.
Yeah, well, mostly. She made a dramatic resurgence here.
Hey, it is the Olympics, man.
It is, absolutely, for sure. Okay, so Balzer's trial received a change of venue, and it was moved to Hamilton County.
And that part of town very, very well. So
sure, it's a totally different situation than Tipton.
I firmly believe in my heart that if that trial, the Balzer trial, because that was the first domino in a series of dominoes that Jay Rich needed to have fall in order for him to have his whole theory come to fruition, right? So I firmly believe that if that judge would have denied the change of venue, you would have seen all three of those people get convicted and sent away.
Mm-hmm.
But you go a city away where people don't know each other, and you have a jury of your peers from a fairly large metropolitan area. You run the risk of a reasonable doubt because if you know everyone involved and the reputations behind all those people involved, you're not going to overcome that as a juror, and there's no way that you would have probably gotten an unbiased jury in Tipton County in 2004 or 2005. But with that said, on the other side of that, we may have a killer walking free because it got a change of venue.
Mm-hmm. So Balzer backs out of the interview for your story after they initially agreed to talk, and they were incarcerated at the Howard County Jail on unrelated charges. And so she accepts a plea bargain, and this is a separate issue, not to do with this case. So she's in other legal hot water at this point.
She's been in and out of legal hot water her whole adult life.
Right.
And she lives in Elwood now, and I've had multiple people tell me that she still brags about committing the murder and never having to serve any time for it. I had someone who was in jail with her during her trial, and she admitted to it then in the jail yard. She admits it freely at the bars and gentlemen's clubs, not gentlemen's clubs, but like fraternities, like the Moose and the Elks and places like that. Mm-hmm. She freely, openly admits to the murder. So, you told her mom that you didn't do it. You were acquitted, so you have double jeopardy impunity. You brag about it openly, but you won't talk to me for a book I'm doing or a newspaper article I'm doing.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to call her out because she probably is not going to listen to this. But the fact of the matter is that you look really bad. And if you care about your image at all, you might want to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
So the legal case kind of falls apart. And at this point, is it so much that we have an unsolved murder, or is it more that we just have an unproven murder? Because it sounds like there's like some theories as to of the case. It's not like we're totally without any ideas. So do you think if this was retried in a different way by a different, I mean, you can't, I guess, if you do it once on one person, right? So it's double jeopardy. That's the problem is once you get off, it's you can't redo it. I can't have another bite at the apple, I guess.
And if you believe that the wrong person was tried for the murder.
Right.
There's been no new evidence surfaced in this case in 20 years, so it's a deeply cold case with no physical evidence if you don't believe what happened or what was told in court.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very tough situation. Is it really unsolved, or did the rookie prosecutor blow it? I don't know, but I promised the family, man, like 5 years ago, that I would put together the best comprehensive analysis of it I could, get all the information I could, and get it down on paper, and not let the idea of giving the family justice. I'm not going to let that die. It's been 20 years.
Yeah. Are you concerned for your own safety at all?
Mine?
Yeah. You're kicking over some pretty big rocks here, you know.
I am. But
I mean, it comes with the territory. I mean, you knew what it was when you signed up for it. As far as journalism goes, I get it. But you mean, like you mentioned, this is more than just a story for you. You've lived with these people and among these people, and this is your town, and you have a connection to the case personally. So
yeah, I made people look really bad the first time that I wrote the newspaper article about it, and I keep poking the bear, so to speak. But do I think that I don't live anywhere near there?
Right.
Or I'm sure that you could find me on the internet if you really wanted to. But I don't think anybody's going to throw up any roadblocks over an ex-con. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not worried about it.
Gotcha.
But there's some self-service here too. I mean, I've always dreamed of being an author, and I like you said, I appreciate the compliment in the very beginning. I feel like I am a legit journalist that at the top of his game was one of the better ones around. I got the hard work to prove it. So I don't have an ego about it, but it's a goal that I want to complete, and I have it all here in front of me now. Plus, I can help a family and make some people that didn't help me look bad.
Yeah,
I'm not petty.
Well, not at all. But are you mentioned the book, but I mean, I could see this easily becoming like a Netflix situation. You know what I mean? Like a docuseries or something. Have you thought of any visual component to it?
I don't possess the intelligence way to do that. But
yeah, I don't even know how you go about doing something like that.
So, I think that if
this was on Netflix, I would watch it. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, but you would need a team of producers way more smart than me. But the problem you're going to run into is that you're not going to get any help from law enforcement, and to make it a compelling docu-series, you're going to need to talk to somebody from the prosecutor's office or the detective sheriff's department. So. And they have no interest in helping anyone put anything out about this. But Tipton has a history of this too. There was a murder in the 60s where a girl was found naked, dead out in the country, and they never solved that one either, man. Look it up.
Wow. What was the name on that one?
Somebody wrote a book about this one too. Yeah, Olene Emberton. The Indy Star did a story on this in 2018 because a book came out about it. But anyway, in 1965, she was found dead out in the country. There was no signs of physical evidence, but back then forensics was so bad.
I know. I can't believe anybody got caught for anything back then. Honestly, the Tipton Police Department, not to accuse them of being very Mayberry, Barney Fife-ish, but they had the Pinkerton detectives come in and try to help them because they were so clueless as to how to figure out how to solve a murder back in 1965 in a town of 5,000 people. So Olene Emberton was murdered. They never solved that one. And this one, we've talked about all the circumstances, but, technically this one remains unsolved too. So, yeah, definitely. And then the mom wins the Powerball. Randomly out of nowhere. We didn't get to that part yet.
And, that's the funny thing about how this all got started, because she won the Powerball, $2 million in the Powerball when I was an employee at the Kokomo Tribune.
And there was a story about it, right?
There was a story about it in the paper, and I was like, "There's not very many people named Buffy in Tipton. That's got to be the lady whose daughter was murdered."
Yeah.
It ended up being that it was. Yeah, she talk about life changing.
Right.
That's the life policy that she never got the cash on her daughter's murder.
Yeah.
Really, if you believe.
Sure. Definitely. So you mentioned a little bit of this before, but people talking, like how much new information do you think you can get on the record? Because that's the point, right? It's got to be on the record. People have got to be willing to put their name to what they're saying in a situation like this, and I'm sure that is a big hurdle that you have to get across with people that you're talking to for this.
Yeah. I don't work for a corporation whose lawyers I have to keep happy anymore.
True.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, I get that.
and if I use anonymous sources that I know who they are,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like.
So you're willing to, just to put it out there for people that are listening that might have something to tell you, you are willing to let people talk to you off the record.
I feel that and I have the discretion, I feel like, with, I haven't done it for 15 years, that the bottom line is that I'm going to struggle to get people to go on the record with me, because people in Tipton are still scared that the killer's still out there, and if you don't keep your mouth shut, you're going to end up next. I think that's fairly widely accepted and known in Tipton, that you're not supposed to talk about this. So I think I have to go about it with the approach that if you do have something that you need to tell me, you can do it anonymously. And I know enough about Tipton and the people to know if you are who you say you are, and if you have legit possibility of information that could be useful to me or this case.
Who's the main people that you would like to talk to that you haven't gotten to talk to, or maybe you have talked to but haven't gone on the record, that you really want? What's your big fish, I guess?
I would really getting the reporter who covered the entire trial is going to be big for me.
Okay.
That will give me that will help me stretch this thing out really far in terms of how I can present how the trial went for the public, from the public perspective.
Right.
I would give, I have all the kids I want, so I would give reproductive organs and other organs to talk to Elizabeth Balser if she would just sit down with me for 30 minutes and talk to me. Right. I don't believe that Kyle Neff has told me the truth, but I don't believe him as far as I can throw him. And I am very close to the situation in terms of like, Debbie. I've known Debbie and Kyle almost my whole life. Like we went, we went out on the lake together, and like we spent a lot of time together. The families were together. It sucks that I'm so closely like connected to it, but it is what it is. It's a blessing in a lot of ways.
But I mean, are you aware of maybe your own biases because of that in a case like this? Because it's almost like you can't. I mean, I grew up in Mitchell, so I know how it is in a small town. If you grow up there, you're involved. You can't get away from it. Like I grew up in a town of 3,000 people, so I get it. Like, I mean, I went to the same people I went to preschool with as I were in my graduating class. It was the same core group of people, So.
Yeah, there's no doubt that my personal experience is going to have a profound effect on the outcome of this project. There's no way. Right. I mean, how could you be like, no?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Of course you are.
Business and pleasure. No, I mean, I know them all, but I also take the truth very seriously, man. Because this is not related to the book, but like you kind of alluded to this earlier. Anybody with a keyboard can be considered a journalist nowadays, and that right there, I told someone the other day that I wish that the internet would have never been born, because it's created the situation that you and I just talked about. Plus, it's allowed the rise of these media outlets that just thrive on lying, and that bothers me immensely, and it's a big problem in our country. So like, I see that happening, at the national level in terms of cable news, especially, is the worst.
Sure.
But so with that in mind, I take the truth very seriously, and I want the truth to be out there on the record in a manner that people can read it and decide for themselves, maybe. So the truth is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you're going to get it done because you have the drive within you. I know that you're, like you said, you made a promise to the family, right? So this is beyond just your own ambitions. You feel like you have to get to the finish line on this one way or another, right?
I want to do it for them, and I had to take some time off from it because I got physically sick, and
Sure.
and I went through some tough times with that. That's not really the point of this podcast, but I did put it on hold for a while, but I'm back, and I have the goal, I have the commitment that I made. I have never forgotten that stuff. It's been 6 years, but I'm gonna get it done. So yeah, definitely, surely.
If anybody has anything to say about this, please get in a hold of Josh, and we really need to get the final word on this out. So, I mean, what would you say to people that are on the fence, like people that you want to talk to, that what's your pitch to them?
It's going to eat at your conscience for the rest of your life, and if you don't come forward, if you have some information that differs from what the public seems to believe now, it would eat at me for the rest of my life if I knew that I had to go to bed every night with some information that could put someone in jail, give some family members some justice. But maybe we do know the truth, and if we do know the truth, that person can't be charged for murder again. So what do you really have to lose?
Mm-hmm.
That person doesn't live in Tipton anymore. Matter of fact, there is one person that in the beginning was charged for murder, but later had all the charges dropped. He still lives in Tipton, but that guy doesn't have a criminal record, and he's not a risk to harm anyone. He's never that propensity ever. He was a bystander who, if you believe the story, got roped into carrying a dead body. I don't think anyone's in danger of getting their life taken from them if they talk to me, and I don't feel like my life's in danger because I'm doing this project.
I hope people come forward, and I hope this helps to shake some things loose that need to be shaken loose, because I think we all deserve to know the truth for once. Even if it doesn't, it's still been 20 years. I still have the material. I'm going to put it together, and we're going to have a finished product in the 20-year anniversary of it. And even if I have to go through Amazon or some other self-publishing thing, I'm going to get it done so that I can present it to the family. I've had a few people say, we definitely want a copy. I've had newspapers contact me to tell me that they want to talk to me when I'm getting closer to getting done. So, so I have that too. So I need, I have all the support, push, and drive that I need now to get this done. Definitely, man. Well, I thank you for taking so much time tonight. I definitely hope to talk to you again soon when this is come to fruition. I know there's going to be the interest there once people hear this story. Just all the crazy twists and turns it takes alone is worth the price of admission. So, but last question before I go, I always ask, what music have you been listening to lately?
It's funny that you say that because I'll tell you right now. Because I'm not a big Pandora guy or Alexa, hey, play the Rolling Stones. I don't do that. But I do listen to YouTube from my phone.
Yeah.
And YouTube will create mixes for you based on the music that you listen to. So I got Tupac, Everlast, nice. Tupac, Eminem, Digital Underground.
Nice.
Let's see here. Ghetto Boys. I know you like that.
Oh, yeah.
Beastie Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see here. Coolio.
Nice.
And then I've also really been into Chris Cornell lately, so I also got one that reads like this. It reads Soundgarden, Audio Slave, Soundgarden, Foo Fighters, Offspring, Pearl Jam, Tracy. Here's a curveball. Tracy Chapman.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Prince, Michael Jackson, Chris Cornell, Tom Petty, E40,
nice.
The Wallflowers, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Dire Straits. Oh, and James Taylor. There you go.
I think that's the most varied answer I've ever received to that question. So.
Well, I'm crazy as hell, so I got all kinds of eclectic music.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I don't even need YouTube half the time. It's just going on in my brain.
Exactly. I'm really just like, I'm going to have a song stuck in my head all the time one way or another, so I look at it like, do I get to choose the one? But, yeah, well, hey, thank you again, man. I appreciate it. And, yeah, if anyone can do anything to help, I get a hold of Josh. He's the man to talk to. And can't wait to read it, man.
I mean it from the bottom of my heart, it's an honor to be on the show. I've always admired you from a journalistic standpoint, and we've been friends since the moment I've known you. So it's an honor, and I hope you're doing well. Hope your kids are good, man, and hope the journalism field continues to bless you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Same to you. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, man. Have a good one. See you.
Bye. Join the Rob Burgess Show mailing list. Go to tinyletter.com/The Rob Burgess Show and type in your email address. Then respond to the automatic message. Also, please make sure to comment, follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review everywhere the podcast is available, including iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Twitter, Internet Archive, TuneIn, RSS, and now Spotify. The official website for the podcast is www.therobburgessshow.com. You can find out more about me by visiting my website, www.thisburgess.com. If you have something to say, record a voice memo on your smartphone and send it to therobburgessshow@gmail.com. Include voice memo in the subject line of the email. Also, if you want to call or text the show for any reason, the number is 317-674-3547. Until next time.